To see through the mask of a toxic person is to step into a realm of clarity that few ever attain. Many wander through life allowing themselves to be influenced by the outer appearances of others, taking every word as truth, every action as a reflection of reality, and every emotion they encounter as something they must carry within themselves. Yet the truth is far simpler. Toxic people operate from illusions, and illusions have no power over the one who knows the difference between reality and appearance. When you recognize that a toxic person's anger, their manipulations, their subtle undermining, and their attempts to control are but a reflection of their own inner chaos, you are freed from the burden of taking their actions personally. You begin to understand that what they project is not about you, it is about their own fears, insecurities, and unmet desires. Once this realization takes root in your mind, you start to see their behavior as a kind of theater, a performance that has no authority over your life unless you grant it permission. Toxic people rely on confusion, on distraction, and on the emotional reactions of others to maintain the illusion of power. If you remain centered, calm, and detached, their power evaporates. It is not a matter of confrontation or aggression, it is a matter of perception. When you see clearly, you know that their words are just words, their threats are just words, and their criticisms are just words. The energy you give to these things determines the effect they have. By withholding your emotional fuel, you starve the illusion of its potency. In the presence of a toxic person, you may notice a variety of tactics: passive aggression, guilt-tripping, belittling, gaslighting, and more subtle forms of emotional manipulation. Each is designed to confuse you, to make you question your worth, your decisions, and even your reality. Yet every tactic has a predictable structure, a predictable aim, and a predictable vulnerability. The key to seeing through the mask is to observe without judgment. Observe the words, the patterns, and the intentions behind them, but do not internalize them. You can witness manipulation without being manipulated, criticism without being wounded, and deception without being deceived. This is the art of discernment, and it is a divine gift that comes to those who are willing to cultivate awareness and self-mastery. Many people mistake emotional reactions for courage, believing that standing up, yelling, or proving themselves is a way to reclaim power. Yet true power lies in invisibility and neutrality. When you see through the mask, you are already powerful because the toxic person's games can no longer ensnare you. They are playing a game of illusions, but you are living in reality. Understanding this distinction is like turning on a light in a dark room. Once the light is on, the shadows can no longer frighten you. You may notice that toxic people often try to provoke responses that validate their own sense of control. They may whisper behind your back, exaggerate your mistakes, or attempt to turn others against you. The moment you recognize that these actions are reflections of their inner state rather than truths about you, you cease to be affected. You walk through the world with an inner sovereignty that no one can undermine. Seeing through the mask requires patience, because the toxic person may be persistent. They may repeat patterns, escalate tactics, and create scenarios meant to unsettle you. Yet with every interaction, your understanding deepens. You begin to notice that their attacks follow a script, and scripts can be anticipated, understood, and ultimately ignored. Awareness becomes your shield. Awareness becomes your liberation. Toxic people depend on secrecy, confusion, and unpredictability. By bringing clarity to their intentions and consistency to your own responses, you neutralize the power they hold. You no longer play their game, for you have stepped outside of it. You recognize the illusion not as a threat, but as a signal of opportunity to strengthen your own composure and wisdom. In recognizing the mask, you also recognize a universal principle. Nothing that comes from outside of you has authority unless you consent. Emotional wounds are not inflicted by others, they are accepted by you. By refusing to accept their negativity as truth, you maintain your wholeness. When a toxic person tries to belittle you or provoke anger, remember that their words are like smoke. They can cloud the vision of those who allow it, but they cannot penetrate the heart of one who is anchored in self-knowledge. You may feel the urge to retaliate, to correct, or to expose. But these actions only reinforce the illusion of their power. True mastery comes from observation, understanding, and non-reaction. In this state, you are like a mountain amid a storm. The wind howls, the rain lashes, but the mountain remains unmoved. Seeing through the mask is also an act of self-protection. By perceiving the truth, you prevent yourself from being drawn into unnecessary conflict, from wasting energy on what is ultimately meaningless, and from allowing your emotions to be hijacked. You realize that you have a choice in every interaction, to react impulsively, feeding the cycle, or to respond with clarity, maintaining your sovereignty. Toxic people often project their fears, their inadequacies, and their destructive patterns onto those around them. When you understand this, you see that their attacks are mirrors, reflecting what they cannot face within themselves. You begin to treat them with a kind of compassionate detachment, not indulgence, not tolerance of abuse, but a recognition that their behavior says more about them than it ever could about you. This awareness is like a lamp carried through a darkened hall. Each step illuminates the next, and with each step, you feel lighter, freer, and more confident. You are no longer at the mercy of external chaos because you have claimed your inner domain. To see through the mask also involves cultivating discernment in relationships. You learn to recognize patterns early, to set boundaries clearly, and to protect your energy without fear of offending. You understand that saying no is not cruelty, that detachment is not abandonment, and that choosing peace is not weakness. Toxic people thrive on the belief that others must conform to their drama. But when you refuse to participate, the drama loses its audience. When you see clearly, you also recognize the illusion of urgency that toxic people create. They often try to rush decisions, provoke panic, or dramatize situations to manipulate. By slowing down, breathing deeply, and observing calmly, you dissolve their urgency into harmless noise. In this way, seeing through the mask is both a spiritual and practical practice. It trains the mind to be alert but calm, the heart to be compassionate but firm, and the soul to be free from entanglement. The moment you understand the mechanics of toxicity, you gain an almost supernatural advantage. You move in the world with discernment, not suspicion, with awareness, not fear, and with power, not aggression. Toxic people may continue their games, but their strategies lose effect. Their words, once loaded with the potential to wound, now pass through you like water over polished stone. Their attempts to unsettle you serve only to reinforce your clarity and strength. Every interaction becomes a lesson, a mirror reflecting your growth, your patience, and your ability to maintain equilibrium amid chaos. Seeing through the mask is not a one-time achievement, it is a continuous practice. Each day, each encounter, each temptation to react is an opportunity to reinforce your perception of truth over illusion. You learn to anticipate manipulation, to recognize subtle cues, and to respond with calm authority. The more you cultivate this skill, the less the outer world can disturb your inner peace. Toxic people rely on reactions, on emotional responses, and on the vulnerability of others to sustain their illusion. By refusing to feed the illusion, you reclaim your power. You become like sunlight breaking through clouds, inescapable, illuminating, and immune to shadow. The mask is powerful only if it can deceive, and deception can only exist where awareness is absent. Therefore, your vigilance, your clarity, and your unwavering perception of truth are your greatest allies. You learn that the essence of seeing through the mask is understanding the impermanence of all things. Just as storms pass, so too does the chaos that toxic individuals generate. Your attention to reality, your alignment with integrity, and your refusal to be ensnared by illusion allow you to navigate every situation with grace. Every toxic encounter, rather than draining you, becomes a practice in self-mastery, a test of discernment, and a confirmation of your ability to rise above the petty tactics of those who would seek to control through fear or confusion. The mask, once intimidating, becomes a clear signpost, a signal to strengthen your focus, maintain your equilibrium, and remember that your power comes from within. To see through the mask is to declare, without words, that your peace, your clarity, and your truth are beyond the reach of external manipulation. To maintain your vibrational authority in the presence of toxic people is to recognize that your energy, your mood, and your responses are sacred expressions of your inner world. Many give away their power unknowingly, allowing the chaos of others to penetrate their consciousness, to stir emotions, and to dictate thoughts. Yet true mastery lies not in controlling others, but in controlling oneself. The moment you choose to align with your higher self, to remain centered in your calm, confident energy, you create a shield invisible yet impenetrable. Toxic individuals thrive on reaction. They seek to draw you into conflict, to provoke anger, fear, or doubt, because these emotions amplify their sense of power. But when you refuse to participate, when you maintain your vibrational authority, their influence dissipates. The law of energy is clear, like attracts like. By projecting peace, clarity, and strength, you draw toward yourself circumstances, opportunities, and people aligned with these qualities, while the negativity of others slides past you harmlessly. This is no arrogance, nor is it detachment from reality. It is the conscious choice to inhabit a higher plane of thought and feeling, a plane where the petty manipulations of toxic people cannot reach you. Vibrational authority begins with awareness of your own inner state. Every thought you think, every emotion you entertain, and every word you speak creates an energetic field around you. Toxic individuals can sense this field. They react not only to your words, but to the subtle frequencies of your energy. If you are anxious, reactive, or uncertain, they will feed upon it. If you are calm, confident, and unwavering, they are disarmed, unable to access the leverage they seek. In every encounter, you have the power to choose your response. You may be faced with criticism, gossip, deception, or passive aggression, but the way you meet these challenges determines whether their energy infiltrates your own. By responding from a place of inner authority, you maintain control over your field, and their attempts to dominate or unsettle you are neutralized. Cultivating this authority requires practice. Begin by observing your reactions without judgment, noticing the subtle stirrings of irritation, fear, or frustration that toxic people often provoke. Recognize that these emotions are signals, not commands. They alert you to the areas where your attention is being challenged, where your self-mastery is being tested. When you respond intentionally, from calm awareness, you demonstrate power wit. Out aggression, influence without confrontation, and control without dominance. Words themselves carry vibrational weight. When a toxic person attempts to provoke you, their words are like arrows, aimed at your sense of self. Yet if you remain rooted in your inner authority, their arrows strike nothing, pass through without harm, and lose their effect entirely. This is the essence of vibrational mastery, the understanding that your internal state dictates your external reality. You do not need to manipulate, argue, or resist. You simply inhabit a state of being that is immune to intrusion. Your presence, confident and unwavering, becomes a statement that no negativity can penetrate. This practice is subtle but immensely powerful. Toxic individuals often rely on patterns of fear, guilt, or shame to manipulate. They expect certain reactions, anticipate emotional responses, and use these predictable outcomes to maintain the illusion of control. But when you consistently respond from a place of inner authority, you disrupt their expectations. Their patterns no longer function as designed, and their power over you diminishes. Maintaining vibrational authority also involves clarity and intention. Know what you stand for, what you value, and what you will not tolerate. Toxic people often seek to blur these boundaries, to confuse your sense of right and wrong, and to challenge your convictions. When your purpose is clear and your energy aligned, attempts to undermine you fail. You act from integrity rather than fear, from clarity rather than confusion, and from strength rather than reaction. This alignment with your higher self is a form of spiritual armor. Just as a mountain remains steadfast amid storms, so too does your energy remain anchored when aligned with your truth. Toxic people may rage, manipulate, or spread discord, but your vibrational authority creates an invisible buffer. You do not absorb the negativity, you reflect your own centeredness, your own calm, and your own power back into the world. This practice is also an expression of self-love. By refusing to let the actions of others dictate your emotional state, you honor your own well-being. You recognize that your peace is more important than proving a point, winning an argument, or correcting a falsehood. Your inner equilibrium is a treasure, and maintaining it requires vigilance, awareness, and and intentionality. Daily practices enhance this vibrational strength. Meditation, affirmation, visualization, and mindful breathing create a stable inner landscape. When your energy is centered, toxic interference cannot find purchase. You learn to treat provocations as clouds passing across the sky of your consciousness, visible but transient, unable to alter the underlying brilliance of your spirit. Vibrational authority is not passive, it is active, intentional, and consistent. It is expressed in your posture, your tone, your choice of words, and your overall presence. It communicates to the RLD that you are not easily influenced, that your inner state is sovereign, and that the illusions of toxicity cannot touch you. This authority transforms relationships. You may encounter those who are accustomed to using fear or manipulation as tools of influence. When they meet your consistent vibrational strength, they are forced to adjust or withdraw. The dynamic shifts from one of control to one of mutual respect, from chaos to clarity, from manipulation to honesty. Furthermore, maintaining vibrational authority allows you to make decisions from a higher perspective. You are no longer reacting to the noise, the provocations, or the fear-based tactics of others. You can see situations clearly, weigh options calmly, and act in alignment with your highest good. Toxic people may attempt to confuse or destabilize you, but your inner authority keeps your vision unobstructed. You also influence others positively through your vibrational presence. When others witness your calm amidst chaos, your confidence amidst uncertainty, they are drawn to your steadiness. Your energy inspires, uplifts, and sets a standard of integrity and composure. In this way, vibrational authority is both protective and generative. It safeguards your own inner state while radiating strength and clarity to those around you. Remember, toxic energy can only persist where it is fed by reaction, attention, or belief. By maintaining your vibrational authority, you cease to provide sustenance to negativity. Lick a lamp in the darkness. Your light dispels shadows without struggle, without conflict, without effort. Toxic individuals may try repeatedly, yet the more consistent your alignment with your inner truth, the less effective their strategies become. Your energy becomes a natural repellent to chaos and a magnet for clarity, abundance, and peace. Developing this mastery is a journey. It requires patience, observation, and ongoing refinement. You will encounter moments of challenge, temptation, and old habits of reactive behavior, but each instance is an opportunity to deepen your skill, to strengthen your inner authority, and to expand your capacity for calm and clarity. Ultimately, maintaining vibrational authority is not about dominating others or winning external battles. It is about cultivating a sovereign inner realm, a space where your peace, power, and purpose are unassailable. Inhabit this space consistently, and the illusions, manipulations, and toxicity of the outer world are rendered powerless. Your energy, calm, and aligned presence speak louder than words, actions, or defenses. Toxicity loses its effect because you have mastered the inner domain where all true power resides. To trust in the invisible law of retribution is to recognize that the universe itself is an impartial arbiter of every action, thought, and intention. Toxic people often believe that their manipulations, their lies, their control, and their deceit can shape outcomes indefinitely. But the universe operates on a principle far greater than human interference. Every word spoken, every action taken, every energy emitted sets into motion a chain of consequences, subtle yet inevitable, that returns to its source. When you align yourself with this universal law, you understand that you do not need to fight, retaliate, or seek vengeance, for what is sown through negativity, cruelty, or dishonesty will inevitably return to the sender. This understanding brings a profound sense of peace and freedom, for you no longer feel compelled to exhaust yourself in battles of morality, ego, or pride. You observe instead, with calm discernment, the natural unfolding of justice, knowing that time, energy, and intention are the instruments of divine order. The toxic individual may appear powerful in the short term, creating turmoil, fear, or discord, yet these effects are temporary. for the unseen laws of balance are always at work. As you cultivate faith in this law, you release attachment to immediate outcomes and relinquish the illusion that you must personally correct, punish, or expose wrongdoing. You step into a higher plane of awareness where you understand that every action generates an energetic echo, and that the universe amplifies and returns these echoes according to principle rather than preference. This trust does not foster passivity, it fosters clarity, patience, and integrity. You continue to act in alignment with your truth, to protect your boundaries, and to express your power, but you do so without obsession over retaliation or revenge. The toxic person's deeds, intended to harm or control, are ultimately self-limiting, for they operate outside of harmony, and the universe does not permit disharmony to persist unchecked. Observing this natural order teaches you humility and wisdom. You realize that your role is not to correct every imbalance, but to maintain your own alignment with truth, integrity, and higher purpose. By doing so, you automatically influence the flow of events positively, for your energy, intention, and actions are coherent with the universal principle. When you release fear of their influence and trust the law of retribution, you are no longer vulnerable to manipulation, coercion, or deceit. Toxic actions cannot penetrate the armor of faith, clarity, and inner knowing. You remain unshaken because you are anchored in the eternal truth that all negative energies return to their source, and all positive energies are amplified in the service of the good. The universe acts as an impartial judge and teacher. Actions intended to harm carry within them the seeds of their own undoing, just as actions aligned with integrity and kindness cultivate lasting results. By trusting this process, you free yourself from cycles of resentment, revenge, or moral struggle, allowing your energy to be spent on creation, growth, and service, rather than reaction and conflict. This principle also empowers discernment. You learn to observe toxic behavior, without attachment, to see patterns clearly, and to anticipate consequences without anxiety. You understand that what may appear as power or influence in a toxic person is only temporary, that the natural order is patient, and that justice unfolds in its own time. This awareness allows you to act wisely, not impulsively, and to maintain your dignity and composure regardless of provocation. Trusting in the invisible law of retribution also fosters compassion, for you recognize that those who act from negativity are themselves caught in cycles of fear, pain, and ignorance. Their actions, though harmful, are reflections of internal imbalance, and the universe's law ensures that they encounter the lessons they need to learn. You no longer feel hatred or desire for revenge, but rather a steady confidence that the natural order restores balance, corrects misalignment, and returns energies to their rightful origin. The toxic person's manipulations, lies, and emotional turbulence, though potentially impactful in the moment, cannot alter the ultimate outcome dictated by universal law. By stepping out of the desire to control or correct them personally, you achieve a form of spiritual authority far beyond what mere confrontation could provide. Your peace, clarity, and purposeful action become instruments of higher order, while the chaos they attempt to create dissipates in the face of the immutable principle of karmic return. In trusting this law, you also cultivate patience and perseverance. The universe operates on scales of time and consequence that may not be immediately visible, but faith in the principle allows you to remain steadfast, resilient, and free from unnecessary worry. You do not need to force outcomes, manipulate circumstances, or expend energy trying to right every wrong, for the invisible law ensures that every imbalance is addressed, every deception corrected, and every harmful intention accounted for. This principle transforms your perspective on conflict, confrontation, and challenge. Toxic encounters are no longer sources of frustration, anger, or helplessness. They become exercises in discernment, tests of integrity, and confirmations of your alignment with universal truth. You maintain your boundaries without bitterness, your power without aggression, and your clarity without anxiety. Trust in the law of retribution also encourages alignment with your own highest path. As you release attachment to others' negativity, you focus on cultivating your own energy, actions, and intentions in harmony with truth, abundance, and growth. Your time and attention are directed toward creation, service, and self-mastery, rather than being drained by fear, resentment, or retaliation. Moreover, understanding this law fosters a sense of empowerment grounded not in ego, but in faith. You are not at the mercy of others' actions because you know that the universe enforces balance. This awareness allows you to interact with toxic individuals without fear, to make decisions from clarity rather than compulsion, and to navigate complex situations with wisdom rather than reaction. The law of retribution is impartial, unerring, and omnipresent. It does not favor the loud, the manipulative, or the aggressive. Nor does it punish the righteous, the patient, or the aligned. It simply ensures that every action produces a corresponding outcome, that every energy is returned to its source, and that the harmony of the whole is preserved. By trusting this law, you free yourself from the false responsibility of enforcing justice personally. You no longer feel the need to argue, expose, or avenge, because you understand that the natural order addresses all things in its perfect timing. This does not mean tolerance of abuse or negligence of boundaries. Rather, it means conscious alignment with truth, understanding of consequence, and the refusal to be emotionally entangled in another's chaos. You maintain your sovereignty while the universe orchestrates balance. Every toxic action, whether overt or subtle, carries with it the seeds of its own undoing. Lies, deceit, manipulation, and aggression, though they may cause temporary disturbance, cannot escape the universal principle of return. By trusting this principle, you develop an inner calm and assurance that allows you to navigate difficult people and situations with grace, confidence, and strategic discernment. Furthermore, this trust allows you to see opportunity in every challenge. Where toxicity once caused confusion, you now find clarity. Where deception sought to destabilize, you find insight. Where manipulation attempted to control, you maintain authority over your own mind, your own energy, and your own outcomes. The invisible law of retribution becomes a silent ally, working on your behalf even when you take no action, protecting your integrity, restoring balance, and ensuring that every misalignment is eventually corrected. In this way, you rise above the petty games of toxic people, not by fighting them, but by remaining aligned, centered, and anchored in the knowledge that the universe itself is the ultimate arbiter of all actions, and that nothing escapes the principle of return.